move to our live stream. So Katie, if you would go ahead and start us up on that. And we are going to start with our chalice lighting.
Okay,
so welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma again. My name is Ricky. I will be leading service today. And we are going to start with our chalice lighting. Let me go to what I had to read. Okay. We are longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion, without having the words to catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light us up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength. That joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free. And we're going to move on to announcements. And I will start announcements with here in approximately 3 weeks, we're going to be starting a therapeutic writing group for the congregation that will be taking over for the nonviolent communications group on Tuesday evenings via Zoom. As well as on May 8th, which is a Saturday, we will be doing a gathering up at Tim's Ford. And we have a bunch of different cool little COVID-safe activities that we're going to do throughout the day. We will have hand sanitizing stations, and just as before, this is to quell everybody's nerves. Just as before, while we are inside, we will be required to wear masks. While we are outside, use your common sense. And even though there are individuals in our community, even though most of our congregation has been immunized with at least one shot, we still need to think about others that have not been immunized. And on May 1st, which is this upcoming Saturday, we will be holding a Zoom meeting for the board sometime in the afternoon to finalize all the decisions for that day's gathering. And that is all the announcements I have. If other people have any announcements, please let me know. Go ahead, Chuck.
As usual, the Thursday night discussion group will be meeting on Thursday night. We'll meet and use watching a TED Talk or two as an excuse to hang around and talk to each other a bunch. And if you would like to join us and you want the link, just let me, or it's on Zoom, of course, let me or Tom or Rick or Tony or Peter know, and one of us will get you the link. So,
okay. Do we have other announcements?
Tony has his hand up.
Go right ahead, Tony.
Because of the rain yesterday, our litter program, the pickup day was switched to this upcoming Saturday. So give me a second, I'll put the link in here, but it'll be from 8 until 11, and we meet at Public Works. I'd appreciate anybody that could come out and help. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Tony. And Jim, thank you for letting me know who has their hands up, because I can only see 4 people at a time on my screen. Do we have any other announcements?
Read what? There. What? I can't read them.
Okay. If we do not have any other announcements, I'm going to move on to this morning's reading.
Sorry, but I just can't read them.
Who's talking?
Bill Boss.
Once I find it, hold on. I have it written down.
Lucy has her hand up now.
Go right ahead, Lucy.
Unmute, Lucy.
Yes, I'm just reminding you that the newsletter deadline for May is April 28th by noon. It's a Wednesday, and so get your information in to me, if you would, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other? No? Okay, so this morning's reading is something Go ahead. I kind of accidentally included part of today's reading with the opening words, but today's reading is about mothers, actually. And it goes, in the circle of care, we honor the truth that mothering is not and never will be quantified in one single descriptor. Mothering can be elusive or infuriating, fulfilling or confusing, commonplace or triumphant. It exists in everyday experiences of each person. There is no human being that is not connected to or disconnected from a mother. And so we honor the complexity of experience, writ large and flowered platitudes, but here in this space laid bare, honoring the truth in each of our hearts, there is room for all in this circle. If you have carried a child or children, whether or not they came to be born, we see you. If you have fervently wished to do so and circumstances of fate made it impossible, we see you. If you love children we cannot see, whether because of death or estrangement, we still see you. If you never wanted to be a mother, we see you. If you are happy to mother other people's children as an educator, an aunt, or a foster parent, we see you. If your mother hurt you physically or emotionally, we see you. If you had no mother at all, we see you. If your mother is or was your best friend, we see you. If your gender says you are not a mother, and yet you take on the role of nurturer, we see you. If you wonder whether your mothering has been enough, we see you. And if yours is a different truth altogether, we honor your unspoken story. There is room for all in this circle. May it be so today and always. And with that, we are going to move on to our speaker. And today we have a wonderful speaker who is going to talk to us about racial equality. And once I get here in a second, I do apologize. Nancy Darnall. Darnall, or is it Darnall?
Darnall.
Darnall. Okay. Nancy Darnall is our speaker, and I will give the mantle to you.
Okay. Can you share, make it so that I can share my screen?
Chuck, do you?
I believe I did.
Okay. A little while ago it wasn't. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I caught that.
Hello, everyone. I should have stepped in on the concerns. This is when Carrie asked me what my title to this talk was going to be. I was in Disney World. And so this is not really a multimedia approach. It's just a media approach. So, I'm not going to bring in all kinds of things, but I am going to use a lot of video. This is a fairly new topic for me. As far as a presentation, not a new topic for concerns, but what I wanted to talk about was how social media, entertainment, and corporate America are coming together to promote racial equality and diversity. And I don't know how many of you are Saturday Night Live fans, because it takes a lot to continue to be a fan, because it took them 25 years to get a best of reel, so it's not always funny. But a week ago, on the 10th, that was 2 weeks ago, there was a cold opening, and it was set in Minnesota. This is before the Chauvin verdict. And one of the things that's really been on my mind since I said what I was going to do is I've had so many more things I really wanted to talk to somebody about. But I'm going with the original plan. But this is the cold opening from Saturday Night Live. I hope you all can see it because I know screens vary. But it is a conversation at a news desk. And on one side of the desk are two African-American anchors. And on the other side are two white anchors. And I think the conversation they're having shows us how difficult it is for us to come together in something of a humorous way, but it's also painful. So there you have, I think, a really good example of why achieving racial equality and equity is going to be so hard for us. please jump in, and if you have comments, that's fine with me. But I think that sketch shows how difficult it is for people to have conversations about racial justice and racial equality. And so anybody have something you want to add to that?
We usually do our talk back after the service.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Not a problem. Not a problem. Keep notes or put it in chat and we'll get to it. Let me see, just a second. When I make my screen big, I can't always see my my controls. So I've got everything set up so you don't have to watch all the YouTube ads, because I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but you never know what they're going to advertise on anything. From the first time you see the video to the second time, it can be dramatically different.
Nancy, can I ask you something real quick?
Certainly.
When you are doing the video, there's a button at the bottom for share computer sound. Are you checking that box on the share screen?
It's not asking me to do that. Hang on just a second.
I'm just asking because it makes the sound a whole lot better if you check it.
If I can, I didn't see it, but I'll look for it. So let's try it. And it's not asking me to share the sound. Oh.
Sound was pretty bad.
Okay. Let me see if there's something I can do differently here.
When you hit the screen share button and it comes up with which screens to pick,
Yes.
at the bottom of that screen, there should be a checkbox that says share computer sound, I think, or share.
Got it. Got it.
There you go.
I haven't done this in a little while.
That's fine.
This is from a series called Big Bang 20, and they're conversations with Michael Sorrell. I'm starting this in the middle with Destiny Modesta, who is talking about incentives for racial equality, social justice.
We're seeing it because we invested in systems that produce people who were capable of producing for themselves.
I love that. Completely agree. And that's something that you're always teaching us at Paul Quinn. You know, it's about the one to the people, not what you personally need. So Perez, social innovation sees the world of social problems as almost design challenges. It assumes that the secret sauce of solutions comes from observing the problem, generating ideas to address it, and then like prototyping and testing small scale fixes. This process works well, for instance, when we're trying to help people access clean water. But when it comes down to the deeper problem of structural racial inequality, it stumbles. In my opinion, solving such inequities requires understanding and confronting their underlying causes, something we were just speaking on briefly. But what do you think is the root issue of racial inequality? And also, how do you think we can break through the barriers to racial equity?
Woo! You asked a question like you went to one of America's great colleges, you know, Paul Quinn.
I think I did. In my opinion.
Let me say this. We know the cause. It was the original sin. Right? It was slavery. It was the fact that people like you and I weren't ever supposed to be fully included. And it was about the change that occurred disturbed the economic power structure and social power structure of an entire section of people. And let us just be honest, right? Even some of the folks that were fighting for abolition weren't abolitionists. Right? So it was always complicated. It was always going to be a struggle, because what you were saying was that the economic structure that was built on a way of life that was ethically and morally just wrong. Mm-hmm. That is what people built their lives on. So that carries forward today. You see people embrace practices and embrace politicians that we know are morally and ethically bankrupt, right? But they do so because they view whatever aspect of their life that appeals, that has caused them to be appealed or caused them to find this attractive, more important than the threat, the material threat to you and I, right? And people who look like us. And I mean, it's why we have schools where, you know, do you know that there are white kids out there that can go to school their entire lives and never be taught by a person of color? Right? I mean, how does that help them? Right?
Yeah.
How does that, like, you're growing up in a multicultural world where for your long-term success, especially in this era, is going to be dictated by your ability to navigate people from diverse backgrounds, and you have no exposure, no significant exposure, but yet we have avenues of people who have convinced themselves that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's just one small example of what happens, right? Like we deceive ourselves into believing that that's okay, or that it's not the problem that it is. These things are problems, and more, like, they are starting to really hurt who we can be as a country moving forward. Let's be very clear. We're never turning back the hands of time. All right, like, that's not going to happen. I mean, you can pack the Supreme Court with, you know, conservative judges who, you know, probably should have never been confirmed because of just the rules of the court. You can do all those things. The numbers are what the numbers are, right? Yeah. You can make it almost impossible for people to vote who don't share your opinion, but truth will always prevail. And all you're doing is making the wave that is coming forward that much stronger.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know why we can't all just figure out how to succeed together. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game.
I completely agree with you on that. If there was someone who wanted to do all the things that you were just saying, but they had no idea of how to start or where to go, or they were even nervous because their history, like you said, that's just what they know. What would you tell them the first step is for breaking those barriers and making change?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just suck it up, right? Like, I mean, like, come on. Like, nobody's going to punch you in the face. No one's going to slap you. No one's, like, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Let's just deal with this in the most honest way possible. You're going to go through an adjustment period. There's going to be some discomfort, right? Like, let's personalize it, right? Let's think about some of the conversations that you and I have had and some of, like, your classmates or sorors, right? When I embraced something that was antiquated, right? Now, I might have been fully convinced that I was right? Like, deeply held beliefs, okay? But you all knew that I was wrong, right? And you knew that I was going to challenge your opinion, but I also knew that I had to listen, right? Oh, yeah, always. But I always listened, okay? And sometimes the medicine didn't taste good, right? Like, it hurts a bit to realize that you're wrong or that you're out of step. But the wrong that you do by perpetuating out of stepness is so much greater than the personal discomfort of change. Right? Like, if you're going to lead. Be people who embrace change. Be people who actually put the good of the whole above the good of your own. I just think that's just something we have to live with, push past, and get to the other side.
Yeah. And you say that, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, one of the things that you taught us as leaders is that you have to, number one is show up, but you also have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to be successful. And that's still something that I'm learning, but I think that it's so valid and to the point of this conversation, because it's not going to be an easy journey. You're going to have to take the lesser route to get to where you want to be. So that is absolutely powerful there. Our last question, you're said to be one of the leading innovators in higher education. You are. You've created the new urban work college program, programs like the National HBCU Commencement Ceremony. You even convinced the young girl from Brooklyn to attend your school.
I convinced your mother to let you attend the school. Right?
Yeah, well, you convinced mom from Brooklyn.
Let's be real.
With all that, how do you use your innovative thinking and just being Michael Sorrell to propel equitable outcomes for your students?
Well, I mean, the greatest gift that I have received in my professional life was given to me by Evelyn Dickinson, right? Who used to work at Paul Quinn. And she was just this amazing woman. And she checked me early in my presidency, right? Like I mean, when I say early, I mean maybe 3 months into my presidency. And I was stressed out because things were tough. And I got into an argument with a male student on our campus. He's a teacher now, right? Like he and I still stay in touch. He and his wife had their first child a couple of years ago. And he and I got into this argument, and we're arguing all the way up the stairs to my office. He gets in my office and he starts crying. And I'm too far gone, right? Like, I grew up in Chicago. I grew up like, one could argue maybe I had a touch of toxic masculinity. You won't go there, right? But the point is that I was not a person that understood weakness, right? Mm-hmm. But at that moment, I wasn't a person that understood what true strength was either. And what she told me that if I really wanted to be successful, I was going to have to learn how to lead with love. Mm-hmm. And so that I think we have to have more leaders that actually love the people they're leading more than they love themselves. Right? Yeah. Selfish leadership, self-centered leadership is what has gotten us in this mess. And selfless leadership is the only thing that's going to get us out. So I would encourage people to embrace just what we embrace, we over me, right? The needs of a community supersede the wants of an individual. So it is,
let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Michael Sorrell. He's the president of Paul Quinn College in Dallas, Texas. And obviously this young woman's from New York's Brooklyn. And I can only imagine what it took them to convince her parents to allow her to go to Texas college. Because don't think of that as being a particularly welcoming state to people who don't look like Texans think they look. But Sorrell was originally an attorney and a public affairs consultant. And he got into crisis management. And when he went to Paul Quinn College University, which is the oldest historically Black college or university west of the Mississippi. But when he went there approximately 5 or 6 years ago, actually in 2007, he had no background in education. But the school didn't need an academic. It was losing money and students and on the verge of losing accreditation. Thousands of fires everywhere. And then some fire alarmers, some small, some 5 alarmers, and some on the verge of becoming actual fires on the campus. And 10 years later, in 2017, Paul Quinn wasn't just surviving, but it was thriving. It was officially recognized as the 9th federally funded work college in the country, the first in Texas and the only historically Black institution on the list. It expanded to Plano, Texas in 2018, broke ground on its first new building in 40 years. And they ranked Sorrell in 2018. Fortune magazine ranked him number 34 on the list of the world's 50 greatest leaders. And he has improved the school in every metric while reducing tuition costs, because his goal was to ensure, and he's accomplished this, no student graduates with more than $10,000 in debt. So he made that college affordable, and he's made it a welcoming campus. And I think he's got kind of a neat story himself. And then this talk about with him and a former student on how you achieve justice and working on solving racial inequities and inequalities, how innovation is required. But I think he breaks it down into such a simple thing. Just suck it up and do the little things till you get to the big things. But we have to have leaders who are selfless. We need more servant leadership and less all for me leadership. How do we achieve that? We just have to keep working towards having that kind of leadership, voting for people who show that kind of leadership, voting out those who don't show that kind of leadership. And one of the big problems, I think, I live in Alabama. One of the big issues we have in Alabama, which I suspect goes on in Tennessee as well, is that it's hard to fund politicians for a party that probably is not going to win. Hardly anybody wants to back a loser, and it's seen very often that non-incumbents don't have a chance to win. So I just wanted to share that information about him as well as her in terms of what they're trying to do with these conversations. One of the other things I wanted to tell you about them was that when he took over, they had a graduation rate of 1%. So they have it's up to 40%. He's aiming for 90%. So 40% still seems pretty low, but I don't know what graduation rates are for many colleges. I know that I just learned recently that there's all kinds of financial aid available to incoming freshman students on campuses. But the further you get into your college career, the less financial aid there is available to you. So that, here at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, we started about 2 years ago a scholarship fund called the Last Mile to help people who were, this close to achieving their goals, and finances had kept them out of it. I'm off topic here a little bit, but they're just things that can be done in leadership, things that can be done that have the students in mind, have the people in mind, not how am I going to be the most famous college president? How am I going to have the most power in Congress? How am I going to be able to be president of the United States? How am I going to control this board of aldermen or councilmen through my work, not necessarily working for the people. So it's innovation, but some of innovation is just getting in line behind the right leader, or going to the front of the line and leading ourselves, because no change happens if we don't change too. I want to talk to you about, or have a video about the benefits of racial diversity in the workplace. Something we don't hear very much, but I wanted to share this with you.
We're gonna talk about, the benefits of racial diversity. What are the benefits? A lot of people just talk about, what's bad happening, to minority groups, what's bad happening to brown people, what's bad happening to black people, and so forth. Yeah, but we rarely talk about what are the benefits that, we get when we mix people together. Basically, when we have racial diversity in our workplaces or in our schools, what are those benefits? What are the good things? What are the advantages of having a diverse group? So, okay, that's, I would, tell you those based on my research, based on my studies. I'll tell you those benefits. There are a couple of them, but I'll just mention the most important ones. The first one is, sharing knowledge. Knowledge cannot be just, specific to one group of people. Research shows that, when people from different backgrounds gather together, they share different perspectives. So those perspectives tend to be having rich knowledge because, they say no man's know it all. So no one man can, a woman can solve everything. You need people anyway. You need people. So we can't be, by ourselves. But having people from, and we are living in a most diverse society, today. And you have seen that, in COVID pandemic, you have seen that a lot of people now know that we are more connected than, ever we thought before. So I would say that, having different perspectives from people from different races, different cultures, your brain, you'll be challenged to think much, deeper, much more broadly, because otherwise, if you're just surrounded by the same people, you might just be thinking about the same things of that group. But when you open your mind to other people who have different experiences, not just race, but people who have different experiences and different types of training, education, you're gonna have rich knowledge. So there's no question about that. Also, that if people are together,
oh, sorry about that. So now we're at benefits of diversity. And I think that's possibly one of the most crucial aspects of achieving social justice and racial equity or equality is realizing the value of all of us, that we have to see how other people think. We have to listen to what other people think. I have made this presentation way too long today. And something else I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to stop with the videos, is as he talked about the benefits of racial diversity in the workplace, we have to talk about those benefits elsewhere. And this always gets framed from me because I do this in terms of people of color, and primarily African Americans and Black people in conjunction with white people. And obviously it goes much further than that. We've seen that in the news recently, that we're having such adverse reactions to Asians. And I don't know, how many of you grew up in the South? So when the young woman was talking about students never seeing a person of color at the front of the classroom, I was in college before that happened to me. I grew up in Fayetteville when the integration was determined to be a fact in our county. They simply closed the Black schools. And to the best of my knowledge, in high school, only 2 high school teachers were able to remain teachers in our county. One was an English teacher and one was a band director. I think one was stereotypical, and I think one was amazing because the woman who was the English teacher lots of white parents didn't think that she spoke English, much less could teach it. And then I look at America and I realize that nobody teaches it to us anymore. But so these are ideas about how we come forward. The next part of this that I want to talk about is what's going on in corporate America, what's going on in education, what's going on in the media. And I want to go to the media first because that was what I think you came here for. How many of you have noticed over the last, I would say 10 to 15 years, you see more diversity in TV commercials? So Cheerios broke the code when they showed an interracial couple. I don't know if you know that there was a huge outcry when interracial relationships became the focus of the 30-second or 1-minute story of commercials, because a lot of people in the Black community were outspoken about it because from their perspective, it was that a Black person was more valid in an interracial relationship. That you still weren't seeing, initially you weren't seeing a lot of Black families. I mean, you see that now. Dove has a big series of commercials featuring Black athletes and Black actors. McDonald's has been doing it for a long time. And why do companies do this? Yes, they're a little bit for progress, and some of them may be for a lot of progress. But primarily, profitable companies are driven by profits. And if they increase their customer base, if they make you see yourself in their ads or commercials, you're more likely to buy their product. We've all seen commercials that feature people and you think, man, I don't want to own anything they own. Car commercials for little cars come to my mind. Some guy got his radio blaring and driving through the streets of a city. That car doesn't appeal to me. I don't want to be that. That image is not what I want. But if they speak to different groups of people and it's driven by profit, and some companies really want to affect social change. Then in terms of industry, we see that many companies are moving towards increasing the racial and cultural diversity, maybe on their boards, in their upper management, but it's so far, it's very, very little. My husband is retired from what used to be Raytheon, now Raytheon Technologies, and they have been proponents of hiring former generals for as long as they could hire former generals because they sell to the Defense Department. Recently, one of their board members was tapped by Joe Biden for a cabinet position. He was a retired general. He was an African-American general. And I read this week he's been replaced by an African-American general. It's still slotting. We lost one colored face on the board. Let's bring in another one. But they are doing that. Other companies have done a lot towards improving their diversity where you can see it. But it's really hard for people of color to advance in most companies. There's still far fewer diverse people in the boardrooms and in management. One of the counter arguments to that is we have far more visible Black businesses. Here in Huntsville, there's different categories of businesses, and minority-owned businesses have been targeted for business from the government for a long time. But one of the things that we noticed here was your founder might be a woman, a man of color, a person of a non-Caucasian ethnic background, but almost every single one of them had their chief operating officer was a retired government white guy. to navigate the route. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just taken a long time for that to turn. We're now seeing very successful minority-owned businesses here that have many fewer white faces at the helm as it has become more accepted. And sadly, I think finally recognize value. Because the whole thing about business is you want to be successful. If you're giving government contracts, you want the contractor to be able to do the work. And for a long time, I think there was and to this day, a perception that sometimes minority-owned businesses can't cut it. But I think minority-owned businesses are now showing that's not happening. Also, and I wanted to touch on entertainment as well. How many of you have been watching Bridgerton? And how many of you have seen excerpts or the entire play Hamilton? So what we're seeing now, at one time, I've been reading a series of fluff books about a woman who is her mother's is Filipino, father was a white guy, and her mother was an extra on a show that she never mentions, but it had to be MASH, and that was at a time where in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry, anyone who looked Asian could be from anywhere in Asia. So that this Filipino woman and her good friend, who's Chinese, they were always on call when they needed Asian extras. And now, in later years, her mom has become a spokesperson for an adult diaper company. But it's just a humorous thing. But we have had so little opportunity for people of color and different backgrounds to perform. Several years ago at the Academy Awards, I believe it was, Chris Rock did a monologue about how Hollywood didn't hire black actors. And he was right. They would hire a black actor if the role was specifically for a black actor. But with the progress we've seen in the entertainment industry, Bridgerton is a very ethnically diverse cast set in the 1800s at a time that just wasn't likely in reality. And I think Lin-Manuel Miranda did an enormous service to all of us by casting Hamilton across racial lines. That if you could do that part the best, and obviously I think he went for more color in his cast, but we are seeing that now more and more actors are getting jobs because they can make that role come alive rather than they physically fit some casting director's picture already. And I think as we see more of that on our screens, it's going to become more normal to us off the screen. So I have, and I think I had a 5-minute warning 10 minutes ago. But anyway, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Hope that I've shed some light on some things. And Carrie, thank you so much for inviting me back. And obviously I've been so focused on doing a great presentation. I had way too much material. So thank you for your attention, and back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. That was wonderful, actually. And now we will, I'm going to go through some closing words, which is just going to be our normal hymn that we sing in church. Now we leave this special place. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Did I just forget it? It just burn out of my brain. Jim, do you want to take that over for a second? Holy cow. Do you guys have it written? Do you guys have it?
I can do it.
Okay.
As we
Oh, my
leave this
goodness.
friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
Thank you very much. Holy cow, I feel so horrible that I forgot the words to that. Wow. And with that, we were going to take a 10-minute break, and we will come back together here and talk about what Nancy had spoke about. So go ahead and come back.